It is sometimes said that to err is human. That is, we make mistakes, and we do make mistakes. So even in reasoning, we make mistakes. In arguing, we can make mistakes. So you construct an argument unintentionally in a way such that it doesn't work. That's okay. If you discover it, you fix it. Sometimes, however, a person may not know how to reason. We may not know how to reason or create a particular argument. And we take an erroneous argument to be a correct argument or the correct way to argue. This is called a fallacy. A fallacy is a systematic error in reasoning. If you want to do philosophy, you want to spend some time studying fallacies so you can be aware of them, all right? The more you study the standard arguments and the three fundamental principles of reasoning, the more you understand these, you'll be able to be aware of fallacies almost indirectly without even knowing the name of the fallacies. But some study of fallacies is good, all right? So get some quick grounding. A systematic error in reasoning. We make mistakes, all right? That is okay. But when you take a mistake to be the way it is, then that's a fallacy. Fallacies can be divided into two broad categories. When you're looking at an argument, there's two ways to evaluate argument: the truth of the premises and the logic of the argument, its validity. When you mess with the truth of the premises in any way whatsoever, it's called an informal fallacy. And when you mess with the logic of the argument, it's called a formal fallacy. It's like reading a paper in college and it's going to be evaluated, right? You could have a grammatical problem. When you have the grammar problem, it's structure. It has nothing to do with the content. If the grammar is really horrible, you can't even understand the content. The grammar is called the formal fallacy. The content, let's say you have good grammar, but the ideas are not flowing and it's confusing, that's called an informal fallacy. When the grammar, the sentences, the paragraphs are there, but the content is the confusion and the reasoning and what's happening inside it. Those are informal fallacies. That's a good way to compare it, okay? So when you're looking at formal fallacies, it's the grammar, structure of the argument, not so much the content. There's very few of these, 3 or 4, sometimes 5, depending on which philosopher is looking at it. Here's the way I break it down, okay? The first one, the biggest one for anyone looking at formal fallacies, is the idea of the principle of non-contradiction. When you argue with statements that are contradict one another, statements that contradict one another, you can't have an argument, okay? This, the Lamborghini can both exist and not exist at the exact same time, okay? So if you have statements, you're building up your argument, you did all the research, and some of the statements that's going to be the premise level contradict one another, you don't have an argument. You can't argue with contradictions, okay? By the principle of excluded middle, the statement must be true or false. But if all your statements are false, the premise level is this is false, this is false, this is false, that's not enough to go with. When you have something that's positive, that's meaningful and it leads to somewhere. A false statement eliminates certain possibilities, but it doesn't tell you anything else to go on. If I tell you that my car is not red, you don't know what to go on. You have nothing to go on. You can't, what are you going to draw a conclusion? Oh, it's not red. It's not red. It's not red. That's all, right? So if all your premises are false, no, you can't argue. It's a form of fallacy. It doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. Almost like arguing with an unknown. The most popular form of fallacy discussed is known as an invalid form of an argument. I don't want to go deep into invalid forms, but it's looking at the grammar of a paper. Is it a coherent sentence, right? So the form means you looking at the broad structure of the argument. The only place this appeared for, and this my introduction, are inductive argument. In inductive argument, I say you have a sequencing of data and then you draw the conclusion, okay? Well, when I say that, it means it doesn't matter what the content is. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. It doesn't matter if you understand the information. I may not understand what's going on in medical science, but if you can start giving me information that goes in a sequencing order and you go against it, I'm going to know it's an invalid argument. I don't have to be from that establishment. It happens everywhere. So when looking at the form, we call these forms of the argument. Once you understand how that works, no matter what language, no matter where you're at, the pattern must be the same. That's the form of the argument. And this is the standard way of looking at argument. In inductive argument, it's straightforward. And deductive argument is the same sort of thing. They have many forms of a deductive argument that can be studied in a full logic course, all right? So in this one, you step outside, not looking at the content, looking at the truthness and the implication of the truth and see how they flow, all right? So we call that the form of the argument. The examples I gave you in inductive argument, once you understand the form, I can give you a million of these arguments and you can evaluate them, valid and invalid within seconds.